This is our long-awaited interview with Bill from OZorn. As you'll hear, they captured our attention at the Maryland Doomfest. One of the few bands, and believe me, there was a lot of good bands there. This was one of the great ones.
Yep.
So if you have yet to check them out, a good gateway drug are their videos on YouTube, which are really good. And then maybe get over to the album on Spotify. I think you'll find, like we did, we have a winner.
Yeah. So take it away.
So guess how many bands really wowed us at Maryland Doomfest?
How many of them wowed you?
Yes.
Yeah. Out of
man.
like 30.
Like a legitimate answer, probably 5?
Three.
Yeah,
3.
30.
Okay.
Yeah. You were in,
and Whiskey, we already knew you guys, and
well, Sirath Gall.
yeah, well, Sirath and Gall was good, but we already knew that.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe 4.
Yeah.
And you guys like
And,
4s?
Yeah, it seemed, oh yeah, they were great. Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like I used to go to that years ago, and it seemed like I liked a lot more of the bands like maybe 10 years ago. I don't know. Now it just there's not as many good bands as there used
When
to
we
be.
got asked to do it, that was kind of when we got asked to do it, I kind of did a deep search of myself, started looking at the old flyers, and it seemed like they did have some some more notable acts, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, but
well, being from Maryland, like it seemed to me like I don't know, in the early 2000s there were a lot more bands that were offshoots from the original Pentagram. Like it might have been like, or like the guy from Iron Man or whatever. And it seems like as that dissipated, the bands got shittier.
It's probably a money thing, man, to be honest with you. I was looking at some of those bills from before, and I mean, they were pretty stacked. I was like, holy shit, man, this guy must have been really, the promoter, JB, must have been pumping out a lot of money to make that happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, could have been that.
Maryland Death Fest is a different animal.
You got people flying in from Europe for that, but there's a lot more.
Oh yeah, no. Well, what's funny is when we first started kind of promoting that we were playing the Maryland Doomfest, a lot of people had mistaken for the Death Fest. They were just like, "Holy shit, you guys playing the Death Fest? That's amazing." So yeah,
that's a higher profile.
Sooner or later.
So
I was exhausted after that one. I had to take ibuprofen. It was so much standing, so much walking. We had
it's like a hot day for sure.
It was hot, and then we have a cooler stuffed up in our trunk because it's like $17 for a beer. So in between breaks, we had to walk all the way around the block and up the ramp. I was like,
oh man, yeah, it's no less brutal out here when they have outdoor festivals here. And like, they just had one called the No Values Fest.
Oh, I know that one. That's the punk rock Coachella thing, right?
Yeah, it's put on by Golden Voice, and they had it out in Pomona, which is probably, I mean, Pomona's hot and nasty, just like Maryland. Like, and and I know that it was all out on the asphalt, and I had friends that were like in parking, which is a nightmare, and they're walking in like a mile, in the Pomona heat, and it was a hot one. I remember I didn't go to it, but I had a lot of friends that were just like, dude, you didn't miss anything. It was so hot and miserable.
Yeah, I haven't been out to Long Beach for about 10 years. I used to have to go there pretty regularly because I'm in logistics, and of course it's the biggest port in the
right. Okay.
Yeah, just
we're right by I'm in Belmont Shore, so pretty close to the port.
Yeah. I remember I went to a like a seminar, and it was the guy that ran the port, and he was talking about they were taking his land away, and they wanted more production, and they wanted everything to be green, and I just thought, I'm so glad I don't have your job.
Yeah, no, God, out there.
It was union on top of that. I was just like, okay, yeah, that's a stressful job. Yeah.
Yeah, that port's old.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Have you always been in Long Beach?
No, I grew up inland from Long Beach, in an area called Riverside and Marina Valley, which is basically it's about 20 minutes from Palm Springs, and so close to the desert. Basically, I grew up in the desert for the most part.
Okay. Yeah.
Close to Caius and all the desert.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when did you first kind of get into the music industry, and what were your first bands like?
So yeah, I mean, I started really playing in bands in like 97, 98. And when I first started playing, so I was early on, I was into hardcore. So a lot of East Coast hardcore, kind of started off like, with Minor Threat and all the DC bands, never so much. I mean, we had our bands out here on the West Coast, but they were a little more punk. I mean, not as hardcore as the East Coast bands, especially the New York bands. So I kind of cut my teeth on that. And that's kind of what probably really got me into wanting to play. Just because I liked the angst of it all. And we had a venue in Riverside called Spanky's Cafe, which would host bands like Agnostic Front and Uniform Choice and all these other bands from the West Coast that would come and play. So I kind of got into that. Didn't stick with the straight edge stuff for very long because I just found a lot of it to be kind of boring after a while. I liked more of the original bands that came out of that scene. And then, and then just when I started playing guitar, I was just kind of writing a lot of just punk and hardcore. And so that was like in the early 90s, maybe. And then, and then I first got my first band in like 97, 98. And at the time, like bands like got really kind of heavy into the emo scene too, like in the mid 90s, especially in San Diego. San Diego had a really thriving, kind of hardcore but emo crossover bands. You had bands like Rocket from the Crypt and
I was gonna say
Tanner and a lot of like really cool like artsy kind of emo bands that came out of that area. So I really got into that, and the bands like Jimmy Eat World and stuff like really started coming out around that time. At the drive-in, stuff like that. Really, and so like my first 10 years or so playing in bands, it was mainly just kind of emo hardcore, with the, kind of punk. Never, and to be honest with you, not really into a lot of the heavy metal bands. Nothing, a lot of people think that, oh, wow, especially if they listen to like the earlier OZorn stuff, a lot of people just assume that I was like super into just really gnarly metal and stuff. And I really wasn't. Started kind of listening to, but kind of what got me more into what OZorn does now is more the desert rock scene. So bands like Caius and,
well, late 90s, that was like Songs for the Deaf and all. So that was really starting to hit around then.
Songs for the Deaf would have been like, I think early 2000s, but
early
Caius, that would have been like, God, what was the big guy? Like, it escapes me.
Blues for the Red Sun was what? That was like 92, 93, right? So.
Yeah. So I went to one of those generator parties that they had. So I'm a lifelong skateboarder as well. And so I used to skate the Nude Bowl out in Palm Springs. And then we got invited to a party out in the middle of the desert. It was a generator party and it was Caius. And so, and I remember sitting there and watching that and just going, oh, wow, this is, it did have a big influence on me as far as sound is concerned. And then I was in bands for quite a while. And then around 2005, 2006, I started a band called Who Rides the Tiger, which started kind of incorporating more of that just kind of brutal, heavier tone. I think we were tuned to like C# at the time, more of the kind of drop tuning and started, but still kind of with elements of hardcore and pretty bashy and just really rock. You might want to check that out. That was our that's cool. But Who Rides the Tiger, and then we did that for a while. But man, I mean, through that, you asked about the music scene. Gosh, like through most of the early 2000s, I mean, it was impossible to be in a band, like to try to even get signed, because it was just it was always just bad timing for every band that I was ever in. And even with OZorn, it's just never been a good time. To try to get a label to sign you, and especially through the first, when Napster came out and labels just didn't know what to do with digital streaming, because labels were just, I always tell the story because I grew up in Riverside, and Alien Ant Farm is from Riverside, and those were some of my best friends for many years. They're the guitar player Terry, the original guitar player. And not that I'm a big Alien Ant Farm fan, I'm just trying to make a point, but they were, they were signed in like 2001, 2002, and they were the last band, but one of the last kind of new metal bands or any band at all that have even got any kind of like deal, like real deal, real tour, real anything. And then it just dried up, because Napster started happening and then digital streaming started coming out and people started ripping music and just, labels just lost tons of money,
And then the collapse of MTV. Well, not a collapse, but they stopped playing music on MTV. So
yeah, that as well. I mean, just through that entire time period, it was just to be in a band was just rough. It was just rough, and then, if you weren't like just a trophy band or just a sure thing for, especially like a major label to sign you, it was near impossible. And then, you kind of had to cater to what they wanted and producers and then even indie labels too. They were just they were trying to figure out what to do too. It's like, oh my God, our vinyl sales and CD sales have completely dropped off the face of the earth. And so all these labels are just scrambling to figure it out. And then for a minute there, I think like in maybe 2015, 2016, they started to kind of bounce back a little bit, but then Spotify kind of took over, and now Spotify is just kind of killing
everything. I know.
Oh my God. It's been it's almost heartbreaking, to be honest with you. I mean, like you literally have to just kind of, as a band, it is a glorified hobby these days, unless you're signed to a big label and they're getting tour support, but
which is such a small amount. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine about the other day, and he was like, why are all these bands playing like their signature album, from front to back? Why there's a lot more of that now? Like even the big bands are doing it, they're playing their big album. And I'm like, tell it to Spotify. I mean, Spotify took all the money. So they got to do whatever they can to make any money touring. It's the only way.
Yeah, it was weird. We like will go to these tiny little dive bar venues, and where they've just moved the pool tables and they're playing under the Tiffany's,
Yeah.
And then I really wanted to see this band Knock Loose, so we went to this big arena.
Oh, Knock Loose, I've heard of them.
Yeah.
So I felt like a fish out of water because I had like an assigned seat and we had to climb up. And then Knock Loose guy was telling everybody to headbang. I'm like, where? Nobody in
I'm
this
like,
section standing.
Like the guy next to me is eating a meatball sub. Is he supposed to headbang? Like
yeah.
Just to the small venue. And you know what? I will admit, when Slipknot came on 3 songs in, I was like, we're out of here. That's it.
It was really weird. The last time I was in that building, I took my daughter to see Barney. That's how long ago that was.
Oh, wow.
So
what city is that in? Where you
in
guys
Baltimore.
are in Frederick, or where are you guys at?
No, we're based out of Baltimore right now. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So just the combination of feeling like you're at like a football game / concert. It's just weird because I'm used to the intimate bars and the festivals and stuff,
Yeah, no doubt.
It's not the same.
You couldn't be where you wanted to be. I really wanted to get into it, but I was going to knock into the woman next to it.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's good for them that they were able to sell out like a 15,000 seat arena, but at the same time, most of the bands that we're into are not at that level at this point,
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, were you kind of self-taught or did you have formal lessons as far as guitar goes?
Yeah, no, I was always self-taught. I just kind of, we all, y'all learn how to play Crazy Train, you know what I mean? Like, a little, but I would kind of hack my way through. I don't think, I can't play a cover song, not one cover song all the way through. I can play bits and pieces, but I pretty much started writing songs from the very get-go. I wouldn't consider myself the greatest guitar player. I use the guitar just to kind of write for the most part. I have my style, of course, but I think I developed my style through just writing from the beginning. And that's kind of what I always tell anybody that, is learning how to play guitar or wants to be a songwriter. So, well, just start writing your own, even if it sucks, just start kind of piecing together your own shitty song, right out of the gate, and
How many guitars do you have?
Not that many, probably 7. I guess that would be a lot to a normal person, I only really use, as a matter of fact, I was just looking at selling a couple because I do have like I've got a few guitars that I just don't use that have sat there. A lot of my guitars are modified pretty hard too, because you probably noticed we were at the show, we were a 3-piece, but we're normally a 4-piece. So our other guitar player couldn't make it. So we had to kind of switch back to the way we used to play. So we didn't used to have a bass player. So if you looked at my guitar, you'd notice that there's a bass pickup in the neck position.
Okay.
And so, and I use really, really heavy strings. Almost the bottom string on my guitar is basically the gauge of a bass string. And so, and if you looked at my guitar, you'd see two chords coming out of it as well. So one chord is for the bass pickup in the neck, and then the other chord is for the standard guitar humbucker at the rear.
Oh wow. Okay.
So and then the bass pickup goes through an octave pedal, which drops the octave, drops down to a bass octave, and then I run it through a bass rig, and then the back pickup runs through my full stack. And so it's basically, it's basically a bass. It's like a bass and a guitar at the same time. So
Yeah.
so we ran like that for years. And then with this last record, we incorporated a bass player and a lead guitar player. So, but he couldn't make it, so we had to switch back over for this show, for the Maryland show.
Well, at least you have that to fall back on,
Yeah,
We need
no,
one of
exactly.
those, was it Jeff Metz has that one?
Hey, Jeff Metz, yeah.
It's two.
He's got a double neck.
It's a
Yeah.
double neck, and he
Oh,
can go
right,
back
right,
and
yeah.
forth. I was like, wow, how do you do that?
Bass and guitar in one instrument. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a chance to kind of circle back and actually listen to your Killer after we saw you.
Mhm.
Great album.
Oh, thank you.
Really heavy. It kind of had to suck to get a record out in 2020. With
Oh,
all
God,
the pandemic and all that shit going on, and
Yeah.
kind of being a little more straitjacketed, because I think, and it did get a lot of critical acclaim, very well deserved.
Yeah.
I hope you still play a lot of that stuff because it's great.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, most of when we played Maryland Death Fest, I think we only played 3 of the new songs off the new record. Everything else was, well, no, we mixed it up. We played a couple off the very first record, the self-titled, and then Your Killer, we played a few, and then just a few off the new album. But just because that 3-piece setup I was talking about is a little more geared towards those first couple of records. They were written that way, so it was a lot easier for me to go in, where we didn't need a second guitar player to kind of provide all the accents and different guitar harmonies. So, but yeah, that album was released the week that Los Angeles County shut down. So we had a record release show all set up, and I mean, we had so we were signed to Seeing Red Records at that time, out of Cincinnati, and like those guys were flying in, and we had a booking agent lined up. I mean, everything was like sweet. Album's going to be released. We were going to go, tour in support of that record, and then it just dropped. Everything just dropped out, and then and we tried to keep it together for as long as we could, but gosh, my one guitar player got back on drugs, and then he just disappeared. And our drummer at the time was this guy Danny, and he couldn't keep his shit together. So I literally, I was without. It was just me. Literally, after about maybe 2 months into the pandemic, OZorn was pretty much done. And then I found the drummer Derek. You guys met Derek over at the merch table.
Yeah.
Not knowing what to do, I was just like, screw it, I'll just write the next record, which is Vermilion Haze. And so him and I hit up Derek, who was in another band called Painted Wives, which is a local band here in Huntington Beach, or Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach. And him and I just held up through the pandemic and just, cranked out this new album.
It was really,
that album was done. That album was done in 2021. I mean, that thing was pretty much in the can, but there was just,
no point
and everything.
Yeah, if you were, even had a slight problem when the pandemic happened, like whether it was mental illness or addiction, it went boom, it just magnified everything.
Yeah. How did you guys do during that? Were you guys?
I worked for a retinal center, and they shut us down, and I was working for a restaurant. A National Retina Center. I worked there.
Oh, Retina Center. Got it.
And then I also worked night times at a restaurant. So all of a sudden I went to 2 jobs to no job. So It was weird. I re-landscaped the garden. I didn't know what to do with myself. And then eventually the restaurant where I worked said that when we started being able to do carry out, they said, we need you to come back, couple people, and take orders, but we can't pay you. So you just have to work on tips. And I was like, okay. I was so bored, you know. I was like, sure.
Right.
And it's kind of like an more upscale dining restaurant. Like we do the crab cakes and steaks and
Okay.
oh, it was really, and we started doing cocktails to go in
Oh,
little
God.
like we were selling draft beer and soup
Yeah,
things.
she did great money on carryout because everybody was doing carryout. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, when we were, so one of the venues around here, Alex's Bar, which is kind of like the venue here in Long Beach, if you're a punk rock band or whatever, they're kind of like the whatever. Think of the club in Baltimore, and this is kind of it, you know. But they, you know, it got desperate for them. Like it was bad, and they started doing drive-through drinks. You know what I mean? You could order a freaking, you know, michelada, and they put it in a styrofoam cup and put but there would be there'd be like a little kind of drive-through, you know, going in near the front of the entrance. People would run out. But like Long Beach, people would just be on the side of the road, just fucking pounding drinks, you know, and then you get back in line to go get more. I mean, it was crazy. It was a wild time.
Yeah, the darkest it got for us, we went and saw like a Rush tribute band in the heart of the pandemic. And it was like you couldn't leave the table. And I went and tried to hand the bartender a 20, and she looked at me like I was the Antichrist. She's like, no, you have to use the app. And so then we finally got drinks. And I just remember being like, this is what it's come to, you know, like we got to sit at a fucking table and watch rock and roll for the rest of our lives. I mean, it was just,
I remember having to do that too. Yeah. Sitting at a table. Yeah. And you couldn't, and when they were spaced out, and then like, I went to the show. I went to a show at the same venue I was just talking about, Alex's. Yeah, you walked in. I'm like, is a jazz band going to come on? Because they had like little round tables, you know what I mean? And we all just kind of sat down.
I know.
Yeah, it was like,
Mark
pretty
and
wild in LA. A lot of there were a lot of backyard parties and backyard shows and stuff like that. I wasn't really going to a whole lot of those, but I got I got a friend who's a kind of a renegade photographer, and he was going to all those shows, and it was pretty wild. Like he's posting photos, and you know, these backyard parties, they just be packed, you know, and people just all over each other right in the middle of the pandemic too, you know.
Yeah. That's how Suicidal Tendencies was formed.
Yeah. Out here. Yeah, for sure.
But now we're back to that little show we were talking about. We went to at this dive bar. This fan was like doing this helicopter dancing. He took out this whole band's merch table. I was like,
man. Oh, that was rough.
God.
We're like all went to help. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Anyway.
So where did you come up with the idea of that great shark? He loves sharks.
Yeah. For the artwork.
Oh, but I took that photo.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's very Long Beach. Yeah.
Well, no, so do you know the name Dean Carr? He's a pretty big video director. He was back in the day anyways, but he did like a lot of the earlier Marilyn Manson videos. I think he did Beautiful People, but he did like, you know, Deftones, Shove It, and like he just famous video director, but he's from Los Angeles, and I'm not trying to drop names, just setting up the story. So
right.
But he used to host a shark diving trip down in Isla de Guadalupe, which is an island off the coast of Baja, Mexico. It's about 200 miles off of the coast, and that's
where they all are, right?
That's where they all are.
That's the great white capital of the world.
Exactly. Right? So we would go there. So he would charter every year, and it was 20 years in a row. That we did this. I didn't do it for 20 years, but he did. I did, I guess four times I went out on that. But it was this really cool kind of charter dive boat. You know, we'd go down to San Diego, and they'd shuttle us down to Ensenada, Mexico, and then we'd jump on this dive boat and go off to sea. But it was super great time. Chuck Billy from Testament actually was on the last one I went. So
cool.
Super fun. So we would go cage diving, you know, do 30-meter dives. And so I took that photo from the cage looking up as I was going in to bite on a piece of, you know, tuna.
Wow.
But I've had them bounce into cages, and it's pretty
Nice.
wild thing.
Are you
Good fun. But
absolutely
I've done it. Yeah, we
terrified?
did that. I did that for quite a few years. Um, but yeah, that's I'm not that I'm shark crazy. But it's a great, it was just a really great time to go down there. The boat was catered. You had a chef on board, and it costs a lot of money to go on it, but super comfortable. You got your own little cabin, and every morning you get up and you just, they drop 2 tanks off the back. And then you had handlers that were chumming the water. And so but I mean, once you get down in there, you got, anywhere from 14 to 18-foot, great whites,
Wow.
floating by, I've had them come up with a cage, mouth agape, just,
My
the
God.
whole
Wow.
thing. It's pretty wild time.
That's cool.
Are you terrified, or is it just like a little adrenaline rush, or just are
It's like a lot of people, and I brought people on the trip, that were, I remember my first time going down too. Yeah, I mean, like, holy shit, man, like this is bananas, like, you see a great white shark, up close, it's something else, you'll never forget it, and I've brought friends down on the trip too that are, just, you leave just going, wow, that was something, like, but unfortunately though, so the state of Mexico closed it down. So they felt that it was messing with the habitat down there, and they just shut it down. So no more dives out there. Researchers can go down there, but that's about it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's very cool though.
So very different though from Vermilion Hayes's artwork, although I love it. It's very trippy. I love it. Where did you Vermilion is not a very common term, even though it is also Vermilion whiskey, but it's such a it's a great word to say red, and then I like kind of the couple and the eyes on the head. Where did that whole thing come from?
Well, my buddy Chris Friedman put that all together, and honestly, it's kind of a blend of digital and hand drawn and AI. There it is, there's kind of a blend in there, where he was able to kind of whip out all these different versions of it. So if you look at kind of a lot of the artwork that we were posting during the setup of this record, a lot of it is very kind of similar looking.
Yeah.
So he was able to actually kind of take the album artwork and then do a bunch of different spin-offs, which a lot of people are, against, because again, there is an AI aspect to it. But he's an amazing artist and a layout. So he just kind of incorporated some AI in there. And but most of it was hand drawn and then digital incorporated. So it was a literally wacky blend. But yeah, we call it, and honestly, and there's really no big deep meaning behind it. I just saw the red on the artwork, and so it's very Vermilion, and Vermilion is basically, Vermilion's like it's kind of a toxic paint that they actually used to, back in the day, back during back in ancient times. Vermilion was a color that they would use to paint, jars and whatnot, but it was also a toxic material. And then it's also used in Hindu, you'll see like, people from the, Indians, with a red tint in their hair, you know what I mean? Or the red dot, that's all Vermilion. Right. And so there's a sense of purity behind the meaning as well. So it's not a crazy deep meaning, but to me, it's more like a haze of purity, and just kind of like it kind of means life as well, and being pure and being a good person, and being, it also symbolizes being a virgin, or available, for a relationship in Hindu. So it has a bunch of different meanings.
And my
But
daughter,
the face and the thing, and on the you'll see people are kind of marching towards the face, and and the red coming out, and it's just kind of like it's just people moving towards more of kind of purity, in a futuristic kind of way.
Yeah, I love that. My daughter-in-law is from Nepal, so when they got
Okay.
married, we did a Nepalese ceremony and we did a
Oh,
traditional.
nice.
Yeah.
Red wedding dress was trumps any white thing ever. I was like, why do
Yeah.
we wear white?
Yeah.
It was really neat. I always, with the way you title songs, like I love From Your Killer Ribeyes is one of my favorite one on there. It's such a banger. But I'm like trying to figure out, why is it called Ribeyes? Is it like a working title or?
That was a working title, actually, but a play on words. So it's eyes, rib eyes. You know what I mean? Like, obviously ribeye steak. But I try to do play on words. I will use a lot of working titles. Sometimes the title will have nothing to do with what's going on in the song. So
Yeah, I know. I was intrigued.
it's not out of laziness, because I do put a lot of thought in my lyrics, but sometimes it's just like, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Or casket. I couldn't quite figure that one out either.
Yeah.
I love a song. I was just like, why is it casket?
Well, casket is just about death and ruining your life, and building your own casket, and just.
Yeah.
Probably a thing a lot of us
For the
do.
rabbit book.
Oh yeah. So of course.
Well, it just means I'll build my own casket. Don't try to ruin my life. You know what I mean? You're trying to ruin my life, for whoever, you know what I mean? But I'm ruining my own life. So, I don't need your help, basically. That's what
I
it
can
means.
do it on my own, fine.
Yeah, I don't need your help. I'll build my own casket. Thank you. That's what that basically means.
That's
I
good,
like that. Well, going back to why you named it OZorn, which I love. I think I read Watership Down like 4 times in my lifetime.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is but it didn't stick until I kind of started researching. Like I was like, oh yeah. So I kind of like it because it's like most people I don't think are going to realize it. But I guess you've read it, and I liked it that it's like destruction, doom, everything's over.
Yeah, OZorn it just means like, hey, that shit's hitting the fan. The developers are coming in to ruin the land that they all were living in. You read the book, so so yeah, and that word just, OZorn just always kind of stuck, in the way it was, and it just basically just means the shit's hitting the fan. Like, pack up, let's get out of here. Yeah, and in German, yeah, it means the wrath. For the most part, but the same thing. Yeah, the destruction of the world, the apocalypse. It's, God is putting his fist down.
What's your German word for annihilation? Do you remember that?
Vernichtung.
Yeah.
I like that word. Yeah.
He was a German.
I was a German major in school.
Oh, okay. So did you catch that on the word, or?
Yeah, I did. But I didn't know the book. She knew the book. I just,
Oh, got it.
I thought it was a German thing when I first saw it, but whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody always wants to assign a million meanings to that book, but I liked it because the author was finally like, it's a book about rabbits. To stop,
No. And that's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's
people,
everything gets analyzed to death.
To do that to
Yeah.
like C.S. Lewis, they want it to be Christian. I don't really. It's witches and evilness.
Yeah.
It's really just a story. Yeah, it's just a story about kind of, tribes of rabbits, and, a developer coming in to till the land, you know what I mean? They're just getting run out, you know what I mean? Just like anywhere. I mean, out here in SoCal, you know what I mean? The developer comes in, you'll see where I grew up, as well, you know what I mean? I grew up in Marina Valley, which was a bedroom community kind of outside, like I said, kind of near the desert, and I remember and they were just building homes. So, when I first moved there was 12,000 people that lived there. And within 10 years, there was 150,000. So they just came in and developed the land. But whenever a new project would come in, and a new tract of homes would be put in, you would just see the exodus of animals. And you just constantly saw rabbits, you constantly saw snakes, you constantly saw field mice, you constantly, you know what I mean? Just they'd be in your house, you know what I mean? Because they didn't know where to go, and so and that brought when we named the band OZorn, it kind of brought me back to that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of very similar. You know what I mean? If I really kind of just pictured at it, you know what I mean? One tribe getting kind of run out of their own
Yeah.
territory and having to go incorporate them, into a different area, and the new area going, no, you can't be here. So yeah.
Yeah, I went through this phase where I was down this rabbit hole of
Literally, huh? Very
in
good.
India, same thing, but they're up against the jungle. So you're getting cheetahs in people's like swimming pools and in
Right.
schools, and they're just going after everybody, and
Yeah.
that's a major problem.
Yeah. Obviously cheetahs.
Like this one, it was like it was footage inside a public school, and it's a cheetah walking down the hall, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
That's gonna fuck up somebody's day right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
But that's what happens when we're taking up all the land and the animals have nowhere to go, like you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a shed out back, and this rabbit loves to dig under it and have its babies. Not good with him. Talk
Oh,
about your killer. I would, and when baby rabbits, when he would get them, they scream, and I'd be running around the middle of the night on the front lawn going,
So why do you pick the house that has 3 cats? Like
Yeah.
not good.
luckily for this year, he's getting a little bit older, and he doesn't really rip it up like he used to. It used to be a
All
sea
right.
of mouse guts almost every day.
Oh, really?
He
Oh,
would
man.
leave us. He would leave us presents
good
every
for you,
morning. It
right?
was so
Yeah.
fun to find. Yeah. So yeah.
But now that he's kind of gotten,
A little mo-
13,
A little more
he's-
geriatric
he's-
now.
Yeah.
like, you know what? Air condition is good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, so I had to ask, what is the story behind that crazy exorcist puppet cover?
On what? Oh, on the
What-
first album?
Yes.
Okay, so that was actually my buddy Steve Jones. He's or Steve Smith, sorry. He's an artist out of Oakland. He's up in Bellevue, Washington now. He owns a small company called All Hail the Black Market. And he had actually, that was actually just all he did was that was like an ad for like out of a magazine. It was just a mom holding up her kid, I think it was like it might have been like I don't remember what it was actually, what the advertisement was. All he did, he just painted the face up on the kid, and that was it.
I was like, she looks way too joyous for this
Yeah.
puppet that's about to
All it
go.
was is, she's just looking at her child, but all he did was just put the what the hell do they call it in black metal?
Oh, corpse paint.
Corpse paint. Yeah,
Yeah,
just put corpse paint on it.
I'll tell you what, I would have never known that, because to me, it reminded me of like the era when you set up your photographer for an album. That's what it looked like to me. I was like, this looks like it has, like, we booked the studio, we had a concept, and we spent 2 hours to get the right angle like that. So it came through great. I was just
Yeah,
like,
no. That was just, yep. All he did was he just tore that thing out of a magazine and put.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, just painted it.
Had me
Painted it.
fooled. Yeah.
So what was it like working with Ryan Bosch on this album? Did he kind of bring any nuances to it?
Yeah, I've known Ryan forever. He I pretty much produce everything that I do, and any kind, when I go in the studio. But he had always since the first album, he always wanted to track a record for us, and so working with him was awesome. I literally just flew down with guitars. That was it. And my drummer didn't even bring his drums down. Like we literally just flew from Washington to Tampa and used whatever Ryan had in the studio. I didn't bring amps or anything like that. And so he definitely instrumental in coming up with the actual tones and the overall sound of the record, which I think turned out really, really great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, no, for sure. And I've never really worked with him in a producer capacity where it's like he's, where I'm, and I was sending him demos and stuff like that, but he didn't really have a whole lot of input as far as that was. I think he just was like, hey, come in, let's get some great tones and just make this thing sonically sound great.
If you put this up against Your Killer, it's you definitely have more melodic as well as like harder passages together.
It's a hard contrast for sure.
Yeah. Where Your Killer seems a little bit more pedal to the metal, which I like both. Does that like a conscious decision, or did it just kind of organically happen that way?
It organically happened that way. I think like, I mean, and even from the first record to the second record, you know, you know, that first album got some gnarly stuff on it, you know, very, very doomy, very, very sludgy. I honestly just kind of just started gravitating away from that overall sound. You know, we're getting ready to track the new album in October. So, and it's going to be even more different from this last Vermilion, you know, from Vermilion, you know, because now Vermilion Hayes was recorded by the drummer and I. We tracked the whole thing, so I did all the instrumentation on it. I ended up adding bass and adding some more lead guitar work, which were done by our new bass player and our new lead guitar player. But for the most part, the bulk of all the guitar work and everything else was done by me. So, but now we've written this new album, and it where now I have, you know, 3 other personalities helping out with the writing and coming up with great harmonies and hooks. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. We got, you know, really stoked on this new album. But, you know, we do get a little more accessible as you know, so this will be our 4th album, and it's, you know, it's going where I want it to be. You know, I don't want to do a bunch of, you know, gnarly stuff anymore. You know, I think we kind of, and it's been kind of a gradual climb out of that, which is, in my opinion, I think it's a great way to go. You know what I mean? It's cool to like Vermilion Hayes. You can you know, it still sounds like OZorn. You know, if you were a fan of the first album and you heard the newest album, you go, okay, yeah, that's an OZorn record, you know, for sure. You hear it in there. It's not like a total departure from, you know, like your Killer. Vermilion's not a total departure from your Killer. You can hear hints of what's to come off of your Killer. But we did your Killer, though, different, you know, different studio. We were only a 3-piece at the time. I was using different guitar rigs, different drummer. And so, you know, it's got a harsher, bashier sound for sure.
Yeah, the other drummer was a more of that trampled under hoof style.
High on fire.
Yeah, like your drummer now has more of that Hawkwind style. It's a little more psychedelic. I like it. Yeah, it's
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Danny was the drummer from before, and you know, Danny was in a band called Job for a Cowboy. He was also the drummer in a band called Intronaut.
Oh, I know them. Okay, Intronaut.
Yeah. So he was their drummer for many years. He played with Godflesh for a little while. Yeah, so a phenomenal drummer. But yeah, but just different from our new drummer.
Yeah, I like how precise he is. And some people make bass face. He has the best drum face that I've ever seen.
Who, our new drummer?
Yeah.
Derek,
he really does. He gets like
Derek's
this,
fantastic drummer.
oh my God. And you can see like the concentration and he gets this face and he's just so, when he wallops it, it is just like, bam, you know, it's packs such a punch. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
When you came out to Maryland, like how'd it go? Like, was there any crazy stories or anything for coming?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, well, I mean, we flew into Baltimore and then we went down to DC and hung out down there, but it was so hot, man. Plan was to kind of go to DC and hang out, and then we were just gonna go to the National Mall, maybe the Smithsonian, and hang out. But we didn't even really get there. We went out the night before. It was my birthday that weekend, so we went out to dinner. Yeah, we just kept it chill. We kept it chill. You know, we weren't exactly like, we kind of came out on our own dime. You know, we got paid a little bit of money, you know, and off merch sales. But yeah, you know, I mean, that trip actually ended up just costing us money. So, but it was fun. It was fun to go out. That was kind of the whole idea. We kind of knew going in, so we're not going to get paid a bunch of money. And, you know, obviously it would have been nice to play the bigger stage, but, you know, they put us on that back room, which we were fine with. But yeah, it was a little underwhelming, I think, at the end of the day. But, you know, we were gracious, though. I mean, it was definitely fun to get out there and get on the East Coast and play for some people.
Yeah, we went through and like kind of checked out all the bands that were scheduled ahead of time. And you guys like had the furthest drive, I think, or the furthest trip. Everybody,
Yeah,
a lot of the other bands were PA, Ohio, Maryland, you know.
yeah, no, we flew in, and then you
Yeah.
know, and I had to rent gear down in just outside of Baltimore. Yeah, logistically, it was a little wacky, you know, but we made it happen, you know, just kind of
You
hunkered
guys
down.
sounded great. We were impressed. I mean, you
Oh,
know, you had us standing at your merch table waiting with bated breath for you to get back. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so some of my favorites were features. It kind of seemed like almost an unrequited love song a little bit. But I love the trippy video.
Oh yeah.
Did you produce that with all the swirlies and
Yeah, I did that whole thing.
wow.
And I did everything on iPhones.
Oh
On
wow,
that
that's
one.
awesome.
Really just recorded everything and just dumped it into Premiere Pro and just tweaked on it and tweaked on it until I got kind of where I wanted it to be, you know. Just added just a bunch of crazy effects and twirls and statics, and it took a long time to get it to where I was happy with it. That was, gosh, I don't know how many edits I did on that. Endless edits.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that the hardest part? Like that just editing to death?
Yeah, because and I'm very picky, you know, and like angles got to be right, and you know I try to make sure that everybody is represented well, and you know I just want it to look interesting, you know. If it doesn't, you know, we're not just gonna throw up a video, but it's just kind of doing a live thing, you know what I mean? I just want it to be, you know, the thing, you know, like the in your face while I'm singing, and you know, and then it just kind of bouncing off, and it took a long time. Let's just say it probably took a year of editing that, you know,
Wow.
working on it for not every day, obviously, but you know, on and off for like a year, just trying to get it where I wanted it and liked it.
I also love Slow Mood. Was that like green screen with all the
Yes.
rocks and the cosmic
Yeah,
stuff?
that was all green screen, and then this guy Tom Flynn, who's a director and editor out in New York. We shot everything in Long Beach. We did all the shooting work and then just sent him all the footage, and he put that all together. I thought it came out really awesome too.
Yeah, it did. Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I still don't know why you want a social life.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't either.
I used to have.
I don't really have one, to be honest with you, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, used to have one.
It's overrated. It's overrated.
Yeah, on and off.
Yeah.
I used to have this dance group that I danced in for years, and this group of women. And afterward, they would all stand in the parking lot and talk for like an hour. And I was always kind of waiting for my out, like, all right, I'm hungry, I gotta go. And but somebody else would start talking. I'd be like, oh God.
Well,
please."
yeah, Slow Mood is a song about wanting one or not wanting one. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, it's a song about depression and medication, you know what I mean? And being antisocial and being afraid to go be in, you're not afraid, but just like the anxiety you get, you know, that I used to get, you know, going to shows or just being in a room with people, you know, and wanting to be like the people that were comfortable, you know.
Right.
I was Mr. Irish goodbye guy, you know. I still am kind of, you know what I mean? I'll just duck out, you know. I don't want
we're like
to
that too.
say goodbye to people. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to leave, you know. So it's like you want a social life, but then you get there and you're like, ah, God, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about Ricochet because I freaking love that guitar tune. Is that just the way you layered it, or how did you get that? It's just the
so many
I
layers.
just want to like wrap myself up in the fuzz. It's so great, you know. I mean,
God, Ricochet, that was a wild song. I mean, that was pretty much we wrote that one in pretty almost all of it in the studio. And again, that was a song that we kind of edited until, you know, I got it to where it was working right. Because it's 4 different pieces sewn together, you know, and having to build transitions so that all the pieces work.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you take the end of the song, it sounds nothing like the beginning of the song. Take the second part of the song, it sounds nothing like any, you know what I mean? So it's just a patchwork of parts that, you know, you know, that work well because of the transitioning, you know, a lot of fade outs, me singing over the transitions and, you know, But as far as guitars are concerned, I'm trying to think now. Is there part of the song that that really gets you, or is it just the whole thing?
It's about halfway through. You know,
It's
just,
just the way the layers continue to build,
yeah,
and just
yeah.
like you start off with just a little bit, and then before you know it, the vocals are layered, the riffs are layered. In fact, I was wondering if it was called Ricochet because of like that kind of bounce through feel.
No, no, I just think that this is the way it crescendos and the way we built it out. You know, I mean, I don't really have a good explanation as to how we did that one. You know what I mean? It was just literally just putting stuff together and it working. You know,
So when you go in the studio, do you just kind of go in with like a bunch of ideas, or do you like have complete songs when you go in, or how do you?
no, I usually have complete songs. We demoed these songs out for this new record, you know, as much as possible. And you know what I mean? And we did rough recordings of everything, but we did kind of go in half baked for sure. Ricochet especially was half baked. I probably made 7 trips back to Tampa, you know, to work on stuff. And so, yeah, Ricochet of all the songs, especially, was definitely one of them that we kind of did piece together.
Yeah. Well, that spontaneity is good. You know, you don't want to sound too canned. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure. Yeah. No, Ricochet is actually just a reference to well, I had a friend that back in the day who had, you know, just constantly in trouble with the law, on off drugs, and kind of got to his life finally to where it was he was thriving. And then he was out one day shooting a rifle, and he was out with a buddy, and they were drunk, and he shot the rifle, and the bullet ricocheted off of a boulder and hit our buddy in the leg.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and you know, it was just a big mess, and it kind of just threw him off course again. But
Wow. Yeah, I'm not good at interpreting what songs are about. I remember like I went and I saw the Melvins one time, and I forget what song it was, but I had this theory about what the song was about, and after the show I went up and started talking to Buzz, and he was like, "That song's about my cat, actually."
oh yeah, no.
And I was like,
sure.
you know what? I'm not even going to try anymore. So, you know, I thought it was about like the Civil War or something, whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. There, yeah, I use a lot of metaphor, and you also notice too, like from record to record, sometimes there's direct meaning. It's like, okay, clearly he's talking about this. You know what I mean? I'm talking about this.
You're convinced, right?
Yeah. Then I will use I'll use metaphor, but a lot of the meanings don't come until later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll write and start piecing words together, and it's amazing how sometimes I'll go, huh, wow, that makes sense. That is about that, you know, or
Yeah,
this, you know, and sometimes, yeah, you know, or I'll force meaning onto lyrics, you know. It's whatever. It's a mixed bag sometimes.
I know.
All right, we play a game on the show.
Okay.
So we're going to do 5 random questions with Stace. That's me. So I have
Okay.
100 questions before me. I want you to pick 5 numbers between 1 and 100.
Okay. 6, 21, 71, 9, 8, 98.
9, 8, and 98.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. I think we got extra number 4.
That's right.
All right. Number 6. What would we find in the back of your coat closet?
Shoes and more coats.
And almost half expensive.
Maybe a guitar if I am looking for a room, but it's mostly coats and shoes and boots and stuff like that in the coat.
I was one of those kids. I was constantly going into wardrobes, hoping I'd end up in Narnia. I don't know. I really thought that was going to happen for a long time.
Yeah.
21. Name a song that brings back great memories for you.
Probably like Mountain Song by Jane's Addiction. Like that first album, like Nothing Shocking, and it kind of like anything around that time period, like kind of brings me back to a good time in my life and fun and really kind of exploring music and being an artist. And
It's funny that you bring that up. Like that CD, it was my freshman year of college. I borrowed that from the guys down the hall, and we had a party or whatever. And second semester came, and I went to give it back, and they had been thrown out. Like, and that was the day that I learned, holy shit, we can flunk out of here. Like maybe I should study a little more, right?
yeah, yeah. Oh wow,
So I got
okay.
to keep the Jane's Addiction CD, but I'll never forget, like, the room was empty. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, that's amazing. Interesting.
Yeah, Mike and Rich partied a little too much, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my Jane's Addiction story.
Interesting. Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
71. What is your favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Guilty pleasure movie, man. Probably like Caddyshack.
No, that's great. Yeah. Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah.
Yeah, any of that
Ted
stuff.
Knight-
It's all
Ted Knight's so
cornball.
fun.
Any kind of Rodney Dangerfield for sure. Like Easy Money, Caddyshack. Because if you watch it now, you're just like, it's very goofy and corny. But man, when you were younger, it was the greatest.
Oh my
My
god.
favorite Rodney Dangerfield joke is this.
Oh no.
I thought my wife was having an affair. I said, is there somebody else? And she said, there's got to be.
Oh yeah.
He was great. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark can do a couple of comedians really good, but I've told him now when he starts to get exasperated, he starts to sound like Jack
I've
Nicholson
become
all
Jack
the time.
Nicholson when I get
So-
like really, like we were watching the new Game of Thrones,
Uh-huh.
and I suddenly started, I was like, it doesn't matter what's happening on the battlefield. These two women are going to solve the whole problem. I get it. Never mind the men. And she's like, you're talking like Jack Nicholson again.
That's amazing.
I'm like, I didn't even realize it.
The rambling kind of.
Well, I just get I hate the new, there's this new, the way the new movies are. It's like that, the way they did that Napoleon movie and the,
Oh god, that was a terrible movie, by the way.
well, like, because the impression is that the men were actually goofballs, that, it was really about the strong wives in the background. It's like, oh, come on, the
Yeah.
guy conquered Europe. He almost conquered the world. He couldn't have been a fucking moron. What are you
Yeah, yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, don't get me started. So, yeah.
All right. Do you believe in astrology?
I do. Yeah. It's amazing how fitting it is. My wife's constant, she's big into it. And but yeah, I am. I'm not big into it, but I buy into it quite a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so do we.
So you had your birthday in June, so
June
Right.
21st is my birthday, so I'm Gemini Cancer, like right on the cusp.
wow.
So, and I lean more, according to my wife, I lean more towards Gemini, but I do have a lot of Cancer traits.
Yeah,
So,
both my sons are Leos, but they're like one's in July and the other's in August. So they're like they're really different kids. It's wild. They're really
I
show
think I have
off.
7 Gemini moons.
So,
All right, last one was 98. I gotta go to the back page. Do you have a favorite catchphrase that you often say?
Mhm. Let me think about that. Yeah, I do. I'll say the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Kind
like
of a
that.
big one
Yeah.
for me.
I like that.
Yeah, I
Juice
work
isn't
with
worth the
patients
squeeze.
all the time, so I'm always saying, "Oh, no worries, even though I'm
No
just
worries.
like,
Oh, I say no worries a lot. I say no worries a lot, but yeah.
Yeah.
I like that the juice isn't.
I
worth
say apparently a lot. Apparently, we
Apparently,
didn't
yeah,
need
yeah.
to be here at all.
Okay, got it.
So new music coming up for you guys. Where is there something you do or real life or fiction or that is your biggest muse?
No, I mean,
Shark diving.
no, not really. I don't know if there's really a muse or anything like that. I just, just a songwriter, and it's just something that's ingrained in me. It's I think I'll be doing. I mean, I've taken hiatuses, but I always come back, and I feel like it's it's more of a calling than anything. I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have. It's nice to have something like that to fulfill your time and in life.
Yeah, it's like I try to explain like being a creative is like it's almost like a compulsion. Like you have to eat. You have to do this. It's
You have to do it, and sometimes it's heartbreaking. And I think like this band has had a lot of heartbreaking moments, but we kind of keep going forward. I mean, your Killer, that was heartbreaking. The pandemic, and and even with Vermilion Haze, you know what I mean? Like, this album, yeah, got a lot of great reviews and critics like it and all that. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, what did we really get out of it other than, we obviously got a lot of great fans and people like you guys, and that's awesome, and people have really taken to it. And that is kind of what keeps it going. So I guess, what I mean, if there is a muse, it is really just kind of like feeding off of the off of people's love for the songs and the music, so it's kind of that keeps it going. But I'll tell you what, like, it certainly isn't money, and it certainly isn't trying to get. It's just gotten so difficult to try to even like now it's like the amount of money that bands have to spend too just to promote their music, and we touched on that earlier, like Spotify, for example. They're just a giant pay to play now. It used to be with Spotify where you had to have a certain number of followers and you had to have a certain number of streams so that you could access their tools, their marketing tools, you know what I mean, within the app. And, and like, yeah, it just, the gatekeepers, they make it so difficult. And so we've actually now just kind of like it's like, fuck that. We're not going to spend a bunch of money running Instagram ads and trying to promote our songs and trying to get more new listeners. We and like a lot of bands have now too, is like we're going back to just kind of Bandcamp, going back to just selling records and kind of building organically. And and then of course, we have our PR company that does work for us. And they're the ones that got into the zines and the reviews and whatnot. And that's awesome. And we'll continue doing that. But as far as like, fuck Spotify, and
I know it's,
we're there, people want to find us, we're there, and our fan base grows and grows. But, at the end of the day, we all just kind of collectively decided as a band, it's like, you know what, fuck it. I want to get back to having fun again and writing albums. The last two albums were stressful. It was stressful, like releasing them. It was stressful getting it out there and keeping your fingers crossed and hoping like, oh my God, I hope when a song gets dumped on Spotify, it's going to get, the algorithm's going to run with it. And we're going to have millions of new streams and fans and all that shit. You know what I mean? And when it doesn't happen, you're just like, God damn, man, all the time and money and effort and waiting around. And, it's like, nah, screw it. We're going to go track the new record we're going to do with 606 Studios out in Los Angeles, which is going to be awesome. That's a lot of fun. We did Your Killer at that studio as well. That's the Foo Fighter studio. That's the one where they did a documentary on the
I saw that, yeah.
Sound City Ward.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of fun, and so we're just getting back to having fun and not being so stressed out and placing so much focus on having to promote and do all this. Like, screw it.
I try not to look at the numbers. We're all looking at numbers all the time. It's like I try to not.
We don't want to do it anymore, and I'm done. You know what I mean? It's like the amount of, like I said, and as a band, you're like, oh, I need to get more followers. I need to do this. I need to do that to get big. It's like, screw it. I don't want to do it anymore. It's like, I'd rather just put the music out there and let it grow organically and let people find it. Because now you're just
Bandcamp's great. In Bandcamp, you actually can interact with your audience and that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And people are buying the vinyls off of that. Yeah, it's just so much better. Just let Spotify do its thing, let Apple Music do its thing, and people can find us. And You know, and hey, look, if a big Spotify curator throws us on a big playlist, then fantastic, but we're not going to pay money for it.
So,
But I am super excited that new music is coming because I think that's really going to keep the momentum going for you guys.
Definitely,
And I
yeah.
can't wait for it.
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, well, that's just it too. You know, like, yeah, you have to keep just kind of, I mean, yeah, you just got to keep, that's another thing too, is like just the constant posting and constantly having to, you know, create content and all that, and, you know, stay in the algorithm and do all this shit. We don't care anymore. We're just
Yeah.
done. It's like, you know what, we're gonna, but we also are not gonna wait a very long time to release music. You know, it's like it is a lot easier to release music these days, which is great. So, you know, as soon as you can get into a studio and record it and mix it, then you can release it. So, and as opposed to waiting around for a, you know, so we'll probably release 3 or 4 singles off this new album, you know, in the next few months, you know. So, but there'll definitely be something by the end of the year, at least a song or a couple of songs.
That's great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep creating, keep playing out, keep doing what you're doing, you know. It's great.
Yeah. Yep.
Hopefully we'll catch you guys back out this way
If you
again.
get out to the East Coast again, we'll definitely be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to.
Cool.
This time we'll bring you a crab cake or something.
Yeah. I did have some good crab cakes in Frederick.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we like it there. Yeah.
I love that town. It's
Yeah.
very quaint.
It
Yeah,
sure
it's
is.
super
It's all that's that DC money is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, they built this about 10 years ago. They built this extension of the highway so that you could live in Frederick and commute to DC easier. And
Oh,
you just
okay.
saw it flourish over time. You just saw a lot
Okay.
more shops, record shops, restaurants. It really,
Yeah, really different. We
Frederick
found
is a
some
nice place to live.
little coffee shop that was a coffee shop / bike repair place. I was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we like it.
It was
there.
called
Yeah,
Gravel and Grinds. I was
really
like,
cool.
Any way to keep the doors open. So
That's right.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.